Thank you for the introduction, Mike. I appreciate that. The talk is around change, and there's kind of two things that make me feel like change is actually happening. One, it's a blessing and a real honor to be representing Kabam here at D.I.C.E. This is bar none one of my favorite conferences, simply because it brings together leaders from around the world in the gaming space to celebrate each of our collective contributions to the broader movement. And then secondarily, it's impressive because Martin Ray is the first person in perhaps 5 years to get me to tuck in my shirt. And the guys that I'm here with from Kabam know that that's a very serious joke. This is uncomfortable. That's why I got out of consulting. So the topic of today is about change. And change can be a scary thing. It is also what unlocks the opportunity for outsized gains and outsized growth. And you can think about it from a financial standpoint: stocks, assets, risk, and return. These are concepts that we all understand on our personal level when we deal with issues in our lives. But it means a very different thing in the context of a company, in the context of an industry, or in the context of a team that you work with closely on a day-to-day basis. So as Mike said in the intro, which was very kind, I have a very atypical background for someone in this space. I came from professional services. I was always a passionate gamer. I remember being told multiple times, applying to some of the companies represented here, that I didn't have the profile to be successful in this space. But I had conviction. And I think conviction is something that everyone has in this room in spades. You wouldn't be here today doing what you do, redefining the space that we work in and play in, if you didn't believe that you were doing something special and you didn't care about building great games. But conviction is only half of the puzzle. And the other component, which I believe in very strongly, is humility. And humility means different things to different folks. But I would like to define it today in the context of this framework. And I won't quote the person that came up with this framework because it will undercut the value of the framework. But in life, there are three types of things. There are the known knowns, the known unknowns, and the unknown unknowns. And humility is important when you're dealing with the unknown unknowns. And so let's pull back to what's happening in the world today. We're seeing the launch of next-gen consoles with a new degree of connectivity. We're seeing the launch of mobile gaming as both a platform and a movement and a business model, with mobile devices reaching penetration levels that traditional gaming has never seen for a hardware device. Tablet gaming, a subset of mobile gaming, a parallel to smartphone gaming, is the fastest growing gaming platform of all time. 3 years, 50 million devices, 50 million gamers playing tablets. And then also, as you guys may have seen last week, Puzzle & Dragon being the first billion-dollar free-to-play mobile game franchise. And that's astounding. Those are the type of numbers that we never talk about outside of traditional, right? Those are the numbers that are relegated to the very top of the NPD charts. And so change is happening, and change is, you guys can feel it. We're all kind of a part of this movement, part of this change. And the conviction and the humility are two halves of the whole. So I look back at my career and my time at Kabam, and let me start by telling you a little bit about where Kabam started and kind of how I learned along the way that our roles as leaders in this space is to help people manage through transition and to see it before the teams see it. So I joined Water Cooler, what was the precedent to Kabam, 4 years ago. And actually one of the founders is here in the room today. And I still remember the interview I had with Kevin Chu, our CEO, quite distinctly. I showed up at the office, and I couldn't actually find the office because it was a small door to the left of a dim sum restaurant. So I went into the dim sum restaurant, and I was like, where is this game company? And they're bussing around dim sum. Go back outside, walk around the building, check my phone, and then finally find this door on the side. Go up an elevator, riding with ladies with dim sum carts, smelling like dim sum, walk out, and it's a small room about just big enough for 35 people. At that time, the company was 30 people. And Kevin had asked me to come in because he wanted someone that had free-to-play experience. I'd been doing it for about 2 to 3 years at that time. I'd launched 2 virtual currency platforms. I'd worked on about 8 games. But it was nascent. I would say it was like V2 of the free-to-play movement in North America. And I sat down, talked with Kevin, and I could see the passion, the conviction that the team had, but also this very pragmatic and astute and humble culture, which has ultimately become the core of Kabam, which is this belief that the industry is so new that there's so many unknown unknowns that we have to focus on that and be very self-aware that we don't necessarily have the solutions. And from that, you had a guy that joined a company with, like, my offer letter was basically like, let's get this company to 2 million in revenue and let's see what happens. First year, we hit 33 million. 4 years later, we just announced we did 360 million in revenue last year, 100% growth over the year prior. Kabam today is a very different company. It's no longer that company above that dim sum restaurant. We're 750 employees. We have 8 locations. We launch our games in 16 languages in 100 countries. We have games like Fast and the Furious that have 40 million downloads. It's a AAA product developed by an incredibly powerful dev team up in Vancouver. We have games like The Hobbit, which have $100 million of revenue in its first year of operations alone. Then we have original IP like Kingdoms of Camelot, which has generated $250 million in the 4 years that it's been around. And all of that would not have been possible if we didn't have conviction and humility. And so a free-to-play company operates very differently than a traditional game company. I've worked in both industries, so I won't go through all the details of the differences between the two. But I would like to give a small example, a personal example, one that happened 4 years ago, of how the emotions and how the change and how leaders need to manage through change is so important in the context of Kingdoms of Camelot Web. So as I said, when I joined, the company was very small. The company was not profitable. We had 30 people. A subset of those folks were working on the Kingdoms of Camelot. It was an incredibly scrappy, hungry, young team. And they had boundless conviction, but also this very astute level of pragmatism and humility. And what I saw emerge was something that was an emotional arc that ties directly to the product lifecycle. The game went out, it scaled to massive success in very little time. We destroyed our numbers for that year, and every step of the way, the team was excited. So you had a team going from build mode, which, as you guys know in traditional, is a very stressful period. Depending on the duration, the pressure, all of that, you're building something you're passionate about. You're not necessarily getting market feedback. All you have is conviction to guide you as to what you should be doing with that game. And then as soon as you launch with a free-to-play product, you have a Boolean outcome on whether or not that game's going to be successful. You either get immediate validation that it's not good, or you get validation that it's okay with the opportunity to improve, or like Camelot, it's a strike-away success. And so the emotional arc goes from anxiety, insecurity, fear, hope, to being Boolean outcome in the case of Camelot, enthusiasm, excitement, passion, boundless, question marks around how big will this thing actually get. There's no way we knew that this game would become a $250 million franchise 4 years in, and it's still growing, destined to be one of the biggest, if not the biggest, strategy games of all time. And so you have this team that's just passionate, and all of a sudden you're working 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, doing everything you can to keep the game going. But with free-to-play, it's a service-based business. It's not just ship it and forget it. So you're having to not only maintain the game and deal with the organizational or technical debt from the whole build cycle, what got you to market, but you're also dealing with stability issues that you didn't anticipate, scaling issues you didn't anticipate, free-to-play learnings that you didn't anticipate, a lot of unknowns. And over time, you start to make quick, fast decisions because your team is spread thin. You eventually get to a point where the game starts to plateau and starts to move into maturity. And so at that point, just as in a roller coaster when you're going up that hill, you kind of feel it in your stomach that something's changing. And a good leader can see that coming and get the team ready for it. Perhaps your ad spend is starting to fall against the tuttle. Perhaps the organic installs are starting to decline. Perhaps consumers are consuming so much content and your team is too small that you can't even feed them enough to keep them happy. Perhaps your technical issues are becoming insurmountable and putting too much weight on the live product. And as soon as the revenue slows down, because with a free-to-play product, everyone on the dev team every day is watching that, because that is your scoreboard. That is your market validation that you are doing a great job making people happy, playing your game. As soon as you see that plateau, people feel like something is gone. The growth is gone. The magic's gone. And that's actually not the case. The case is, at that point in time, you've actually created something special. If you can get a game to scale the way that Kabam was able to with Kingdoms of Camelot, You've created a franchise. And then the onus of the team is not to lose momentum, lose passion, become concerned about the future. It's actually to fortify and make the game truly a multi-generational, multi-platform franchise. And so then it's much more about getting people psyched about that. We're moving into expansion packs. We're doing content packs, things that anyone that's worked on The Sims or any of the Maxis titles would feel they understand very clearly. And doing that in a way that fully respects the democratic nature of free-to-play. Consumers tell you in free-to-play what they want. They tell you through market research what they need. And great designers bring those two things together and deliver great results. And then invariably, you'll have a stumble. And in the case of KOC, we did have a stumble. There was a period of time where that original game ran into hardship. We saw the revenues on that game fall in 1-2 months, 75%. And so we had the game like this. Kabam is exceptional at running games as a service, where we can run a game like revenue perspective like this, and we had a month where it fell 75%. And this is where leadership is also really important. When the team is low on morale, they don't feel like they can control the issue, there's an unknown that they can't get their hands around, it feels insurmountable, that's when you have to be able to dive into the trenches and work with them to fix that. Bring focus to the core issue, identify the core issue, and get them inspired about getting it back on track and up. And what we saw at Kabam through some excellent technology work as well as some excellent design work, we were able to bring Camelot back. It took 3 months, but now the game is running better than it ever has. And from that, we were able to catapult into mobile and bring that franchise forward. And so, kind of to recap, the arc of all of this speaks to conviction and humility. When you're on the build side, it's all about conviction. You have to believe in your heart of hearts that the game you're making will redefine the category. It will redefine people's expectations for what, in our case, a mid-core free-to-play mobile game should be. And as you get closer to ship, and especially beta, you have to have the humility and the plan as a leader to deal with the fact that you might be wrong. You might be catastrophically wrong. But that's okay, because as long as you have a plan, and as long as your team feels passionate about what they're doing and about the end result, that you can get them there. And then when you launch that product, it's all about doubling down. When people are riding high, feeling good, pushing them, leaning into the conviction to make this game the biggest thing it can be. And then, as it starts to mature, not letting the hubris of success blind them from seeing the reality of what's happening, that the product is maturing, the product is stabilizing, and pushing them more than ever to be humble. Because when people are riding high, that's when they have their biggest blind spots. And then, when things are riding high on expansion packs and content packs, or riding low on a design miss or a technology miss, being there with them in the trenches, pushing them just in the right way, helping them deliver that success and making them feel good about it. And all of that, if that's done well, you can manage change at any level. Mike talked about how the company had reorged 4 times over the last 4 years. That principle that I just described, that arc, that relates to every aspect of our business. And that's because Kabam's organized in a fractal design. So I described the way the game teams operate with change, but I'll leave it to you to extrapolate how you could expand that to cover an entire company or multiple business units or even multiple geographies. So with that, that's my talk on change. I'd encourage everyone to maintain the conviction, but be humble. Thank you.